Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Horns Report here on KXAN. Plus, I'm your host, Billy Gates, and we've got a lot going on today here with spring football practice beginning. That's March 9th. This is being taped on a Monday, as usual, along with the Texas women's and men's basketball teams in the SEC tournaments, and then baseball and softball still getting going. So we got plenty to talk about, and here with me to do just that is KXAN Sports Director Roger Wallace. And Roger, obviously we got to start with football first. Spring practice opens up for Steve Sarkisian's gang, getting prepared for the 2026 season. And their quarterback has a bit of a boo-boo on his foot and can't do things right now, but Arch Manning's going to be okay. He had that offseason foot surgery that's been well documented by pretty much everybody in the Texas football media. But Steve says, hey, it's going to be fine.
Yeah, and he said this earlier that when he had an availability a couple weeks ago, he had the offseason surgery, had it early after the bowl game, and so Arch was at practice today. Sark said that he did throw, just not in the window that the media was allowed in. So, we saw him at the basketball game throwing T-shirts and looks like he's progressing fine. He's not wearing a boot. He's not in crutches, anything like that. And I don't think anything has happened to think that he's been slowed down. And, honestly, it's early March and they play September 5th. So I think there's plenty of time for him to get ready to go and be ready, but they'll be cautious with him. And why not? At this point, the guy's in his fourth year in Steve Sarkisian's system.
Right, and that's the big thing. I mean, it's not like he needs the spring practice. Obviously, you want to stay sharp, you want to keep things fresh, things like that. But he doesn't particularly need these spring practices. And Steve and the staff rightfully just taking their time, making sure he's fine before he comes back and maybe aggravates that injury or something like that during a spring workout, which would be pretty tragic. Anyway. Steve spoke with media members after the first practice this morning. Here's a little bit what he said about Arch. So here is Steve talking Arch Manning.
It's right on path with where we thought he would be. Again, we're not in a rush to get him out there. He did some throwing today. Not when you guys were there, obviously, but he's right on course. We're just not in a rush, But I do think his experience, having been 3 years in the system, and knowing the stage that KJ's in, kind of in year two, the stage that Dia and MJ are in, their first time going through it, he can offer some subtleties that maybe are from a different perspective than mine or Coach Milwee or Coach Bamonte that sometimes resonates a little bit better for a younger player, as well as with the receivers. That communication with those guys, whether I'll use Cam as an example, watching him run a route, come back, and then that communication with where they're at of how Arch saw it, or how Cam saw it, and why he ran a route a certain way. And so all those things are underway. And we'll get him going more and more as we get through spring. And again, we got 3 this week. We get spring break. We'll get back. So I'm in, like I said, I'm in no rush. I want to make sure he's 100% healthy, ready to go.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And obviously with a guy like Arch, his football acumen, his intelligence, he's able to articulate what he sees to guys like KJ Lacey, MJ Morris, Dia Bell during those practices to bring them along. Because, if Arch happens to go down during the season, which is common for quarterbacks, then, a guy like KJ Lacey, who seems to be sort of playing his way into the backup role, kind of seems like this is going to be very advantageous for KJ.
Yeah, he's going to get a lot more reps with wide receivers that normally he wouldn't with. And the reference to Cam, obviously, the one everyone's talking about, Cam Coleman, the Auburn transfer, outstanding receiver at Auburn, and figures to have a big season coming up. But, no Emmett Mosley right now, Ryan Wingo as well, getting through offseason medical issues as well. So there's a lot of guys that have to take care of their bodies and do that. And there's a lot of time between now and then. And Arch will have plenty of time to throw to all those guys, specifically a Cam Coleman who's new to Manning. But I don't think, they have a lot of weapons we're talking about here that if they perform at the level we think, this could be a really explosive offense. But yeah, it's day one, and right now I think all those young players, even the first-time players at Texas, the 19 portal guys, they probably feel like they're swimming upstream a little bit. So every day it'll be a lot easier for those guys, and I wouldn't worry at all about a guy like Arch Manning.
Right, and Steve also addressed KJ Lacey, the second-year man out of Saraland, Alabama, who's a great football player, came in as a 4-star recruit, was a Mr. Alabama Football Award winner there in 2024. He's got a rocket arm. He's got really good touch on his passes. He's everything you want a pocket passer to be, basically. And, Sark's all about player development, right? I mean, he's going to add a transfer here and there like Matthew Caldwell, like MJ Morris, who's going to kind of help that room come along. But at his base, Steve Sarkisian wants to recruit the high school ranks. He wants to develop players. KJ Lacey is one of those development guys, Dia Bell being the other one. Steve talked about how these reps are going to improve KJ Lacey here moving forward. So here's Steve on KJ.
I really do. This is a phenomenal opportunity for KJ. Sometimes, there's unintended consequences of things. And one of the unintended consequences of Arch not being able to go right now is KJ working with R1s. And a lot of times we have to manufacture that throughout spring of put him with the ones, pull Arch out. Now he's just getting all of this. And I don't know how much, his number might get called this fall. And so there's a lot of banked reps that he's getting right now that I think are invaluable for him. I'm been very impressed. He made a lot of plays today throwing the ball. He made plays with his feet. There's a couple plays that I think he'll want back, but that's going to come with some of the experience and the speed of the first team defense too, of how they play. But this is a great opportunity for him.
So yeah, the interesting point that Sark made was that KJ Lacey seeing Texas's first team defense also sort of is going to get him better, maybe a little bit of a trial by fire kind of scenario there for him.
And again, I marvel at the fact that Sark can have so many scholarship quarterbacks in this era of college football. Lacey figures, like Arch, he's going to have to be on the bench 2 years minimum before he's the guy. And then what about a Dia Bell, who came in as one of the top-ranked quarterbacks Texas has ever recruited? So, again, the fact that Sark's able to keep these guys happy and they know the development factor and how that might help them to the next level. But he continues to have such a deep quarterback room. And you mentioned MJ Morris, a lot like Matthew Caldwell. If they need one play in one moment, like Mississippi State, do they turn to a guy who's played a lot of football that he can make that play? I mean, that's normally why you get a guy like that. You said to help the room, another veteran voice, but also maybe in that one moment they need a play, they turn to a veteran. So it's interesting to me how Sark has been able to keep a full quarterback room when everybody seems to be making the move as soon as they realize they might not be the guy.
Yeah, and like you said, in this day of age, that's pretty impressive. Now, spring practice schedule here real quick. Like we said, started today. They're going to have 2 more practices this week, Wednesday and Friday, before they get spring break off. And then they're going to finish up their 12 remaining practices leading up to the spring game April 18th. We still don't know what that spring game's going to look like, Roger. Last year they didn't have a spring game. It was more of a fan celebration where a bunch of not only the football players, but the athletic department, a bunch of athletes signed autographs, so they had a bunch of activities. And so we'll see how that sort of, works itself out. Obviously, a good thing for the fans to come get a little taste of football here in mid-April, once they're able to do that. But
he's being kind of coy on what. So if I'm a fan, I would just expect, let's go have a day of football celebration, and then whatever happens, don't be surprised. They're not going to line up 11 on 11 and run 60 plays, ones against ones or anything like that. So keep your football expectations a little lower, and just the fact that hopefully it'll be a beautiful day on April 18th, and you can go out and enjoy a lot of what they did last year, and maybe they'll mix in some of the team out on the field doing something. But Sark is the first to say, don't know what it's going to look like.
Right. Yeah, so keep it on KXAN for that. On air, online, we'll have all the updates during spring football on air and on KXAN.com and here on KXAN Plus too. And I'm moving over to the women's basketball team. Obviously, big win for them, Rogers. 78-61 over kind of team that's turned into their arch nemesis, South Carolina, to win the SEC Tournament Championship on Sunday there in Greenville, South Carolina. Had to play the Gamecocks about 90 minutes away from their campus in Columbia. But Roger, I mean, you're close to the team. You've done some of their games on the radio broadcast. As far as just the way they played, that had to have been one of the better games that a Vic Schaefer team here has played in quite a long time.
I would argue it's the best win in women's college basketball this year, and I don't know if there's a close second, but I was there at Alabama a week ago Sunday for their regular season finale, and that was a struggle. It was an okay Alabama team, not a great Alabama team, and they really struggled to win by 7. And Vic Schaefer, the only thing he was really happy about was the fact that they found a way to win at 11 a.m. on the road on a Sunday morning. And then they go and run roughshod over South Carolina. And to me, Billy, what said it all without saying a word was the reaction of Dawn Staley on the sideline, because she looked at that result going on in front of her eyes thinking, okay, maybe now I know what it's like when the other team is getting that done to them by us. She wasn't going crazy. She wasn't, so upset and yelling. It was almost as if she's saying, we just caught a really good team on a bad day for us. And kind of the old expression, tip your cap, because Texas dominated from a 14-0 lead, and I don't think it got closer than 9 the whole way.
Right, and like when we were watching that game sort of unfold, like I hadn't seen the beginning portions. I was off doing something else in the station. I came back and they're up 14-0, and like I'm thinking like what is going on? Like there's no way this is happening, considering that is technically, well, not technically, it's kind of a de facto home game for South Carolina because they're so close to campus and all their fans can make it. And quite frankly, the way they've dominated that tournament, people like to cheer for winners, and so they're going to cheer for South Carolina. But Madison Booker, Justice Carlton, Jordan Lee, they led quite a statement victory, especially Justice Carlton. You get she's been kind of hit or miss this season, a little inconsistent, but she drops 13 of her 15 in the opening quarter. I would say that's quite a way to set a tone.
27 points in the first quarter against South Carolina will get anybody's attention. So, yeah. And from there, South Carolina made some runs, but Texas had every answer. Jordan Lee had a flurry in the fourth quarter. She got an and one. She hit a 3. She got back to the basket. Madison Booker had 18 points. The bigs did some work down low, and, Rori Harmon was her normal self, just a great on-ball defender. But I think that game will have some tournament ramifications that we'll talk about with seeding and, more importantly, location when it comes to those 2 regional sites in Fort Worth and Sacramento. We were kind of figuring, okay, they'll be in Sacramento opposite. The other region will be UCLA and Texas. They'll be the 2 number ones. You keep South Carolina and UConn closer, not like Fort Worth's close to the East Coast.
Sure.
Now, it certainly looks like there's a great argument for Texas to stay in their state and play for a trip to the Final Four without having to leave the state of Texas.
Yep, they'll certainly play their first and second round games here in Austin at the Moody Center. And then, once the selections are announced on March 15th on Selection Sunday, perhaps they get in one of the Fort Worth regionals. So we'll find out then when we find out.
I think what we'll find out then, Billy, is I don't want to hear another thing about conference tournaments meaning anything if they don't move ahead of South Carolina because they beat them on a neutral floor.
Right.
They lost by 3 in Columbia, and they beat them soundly on another semi-neutral floor. Now, South Carolina, 1 loss in the SEC compared to the next closest, Vanderbilt and Texas, 3. If you're going to say that's the reason, then what are we doing for the conference tournaments other than playing for a trophy? So, and if that's right, that's right, because Listen, I don't think conference tournaments should decide the conference champion over a span of 4 or 5 days compared to 2 months. But when you meet head to head and you add that, that piece of information into the equation, they played the game. They should be credited for 2 out of 3 against South Carolina and never getting to play them on their home floor as in at Moody Center.
Right. And speaking of the game, typically we have Vic Schaefer have his comments after a ball game because you know how colorful those are. But Want to try something different this time. We got the senior point guard, Rori Harmon, to answer some questions post-game after the big win over South Carolina. So here's Rori on the win and kind of where she's at with this being her last season. So here's Rori.
I didn't know that. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like he just takes his jacket off because it's genuinely just hot, like in the building. There's a lot of people there and there's a lot of people yelling, but I don't know. I felt like every game we came out ready to go, and I think you can see it on his face that he has a trust factor in his team to get stuff done. And it's a game of runs also. Like there's gonna be games or time where we're down or they go on a run, and it's just about composure. And I think it starts with him, and then it starts with me, and then it permeates throughout the team. And so I feel like it was just really, we felt really composed this whole tournament. We felt like we were in control a lot of the time. So, yeah, I'm glad he didn't have to take his jacket off. You say that it's my last, and I'm trying to not pour so much emotion into it, kind of just be where my feet are at and not make it such an emotional roller coaster and getting tied up into like it being my last. But when you say it out loud, it kind of makes me really sad. But I'm happy at the same time because this is the last one, and I'm glad that we came out on top. But it's not over, and so we're going to take our few days off, whatever we get, and get back to work and kind of just feed off this energy from this tournament. It's been a long run here at Texas, and we've won plenty of championships, but I don't think we're finished. So,
Madison or Rori, how good can this team be when Justice plays the way that she played tonight?
Good enough to win a championship, as you can see. Yeah, I mean, Justice was my roommate for this trip. And so I was telling her, I was like, I need you to do what you do, basically. Like I told her, like, you're going to be, I didn't even have to say it. And she was like, I got you. And so I'm just glad that we can get that out of her. Like I can tell in the look in her face, like when she starts, she's not a huge communicator, but when she starts like talking and hyping people up, that's when you know she's like really locked in. And so I could see that in her in the first minute of the game, really. So that's just what we're going to need down the line as well.
Well, there's its secret, Roger. Sounds like Rori and Justice need to be roommates on trips here going forward.
Justice Carlton is the antithesis of game face when you watch her play. She's got a kind of a permanent smile on her face, and she looks like, how in the world can this person be this tough and this athletic and this skilled? And then, she kind of the silent assassin, the way she can do sometimes. I think that's the big concern.
Sure.
Is that we saw great spurts from her, including the 13-point quarter. What they wanted is more consistently and not make those little mistakes that forces Vic Schaefer to go to his bench. But yeah, when she's good, she's got an array of moves. She can stretch the floor a little bit. She's got a great knack to find space inside and loose balls and offensive rebounds. She's not particularly tall. She's about 6'1", 6'2", but she plays a lot bigger, and she just got a great feel for the game. But yeah, that's something that's so important to add that to all the other weapons. And then I just keep marveling at Jordan Lee because she plays so hard on the defensive end, yet she is really creative and so dangerous offensively.
Yeah, so we're going to find out where Texas lands in the national seeding on March 15th. That is the day that college basketball fans wait for with bated breath. It is Selection Sunday. So we will hear everything about that when it happens. Until then, the team's got a little bit time off. They can recoup, recharge. Yeah, and
that's a strange part, Billy. They're going to go, almost 2 weeks without playing. Yeah. Because they opted to play the women's tournament a week before the men's tournament and kind of give them their own spotlight, which is great in one respect. But now a week before the selection, and then the tournament doesn't start until the following Friday. So that's a long time. Coaches have a lot easier time with a schedule when it's hectic than they do here, trying to figure out, okay, how much time do we give them off? Right. How much time do we bring them back? We don't want them stale. But that Selection Sunday for the women, which is the second one of the day, that's going to be a lot less stressful than the first Selection Sunday of the day. Around here anyway.
Yep, and that's where we are headed next in the show. The men's basketball, the Texas men's basketball, they're in the SEC tournament this week. They play Ole Miss on Wednesday. I think I have something. Here we go. So they're going to take on Ole Miss. Texas is the number 10 seed in the tournament, the SEC. They finished 9-9, so right at 500. They're at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, and then the winner will get, and there's a typo in there, sorry about that. The winner's going to play the 7 seed Georgia in the second round. The team sort of stumbled at the finish line here, lose their last 2 games. They lose to Oklahoma in overtime at Moody Center. If they happen to lose to Ole Miss here, they go one and done in the tournament. I think we've been talking about that, Roger. That might put them back in the same situation they were in last year with a game at Dayton in the first 4. It shouldn't knock them out of the tournament completely because they've had some good wins. However, it kind of seems like a loss to Ole Miss would sort of complicate things a little bit.
No doubt. I mean, that would be probably their second worst loss of the season, going back to Mississippi State at home in overtime to open things up. And again, you go back to, kind of the women's scenario. They went 9-9 in a power conference. Now, it's not the conference last year, but they did go 9-9 in the conference. Is that good enough by itself, regardless of what happens in Nashville? Or do they take in consideration not only you get bounced in Nashville in the first game, but that's 3 losses in a row to end the season and 4 out of 5. How much does that weigh? But you would think 9-9 would get you in. I mean, 6 got them in last year in the SEC. Much different makeup of the conference. But, yeah, they don't want to sit around from Wednesday night until Sunday evening sitting there on a 3-game losing streak. The flip side is they get by Ole Miss. Now, Georgia beat them in Athens, but Texas handled them in Austin, so you have to like their chances there, depending on how the game on Wednesday goes. And if everybody's remains healthy in the tournament, then maybe they get to the quarterfinals on Friday. But there's that bracket. And again, it just, conference tournaments, I mean, look at that. It's ridiculous. You have to win 5 games from that Wednesday slot on. Yeah. It's a money grab, and we'll see how it plays out. I know it's exciting, and I'm the first person to turn it on at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. and watch every game and then complain about it. But again, 4 or 5 days deciding something that 2 months you would think was sufficient will always be a head scratcher to me.
Yeah, no, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. The way the Sun Belt Conference does their conference tournament with the ladder format, where if you're a lower seed and you want to get to the dance, you got to win 6 games in a row and you got to make your way up through the bracket. And with their first and second place teams, they get a bye all the way to the semifinals, so they're only playing a couple games to secure their spot. So we could talk about conference tournaments all day long and have this great debate, but we just don't have that amount of time.
Don't get me started on Miami, the undefeated Redhawks, and discussion that they might not make it if they don't win the MAC tournament.
Yeah, no kidding.
But this is the Horns report, the Hawks report.
This is the Horns report after all. The men's team, they're going to pick up play Wednesday here in the first round of the SEC tournament. Again, that's 6 p.m. Central Time against Ole Miss.
What are the odds they'd face Chris Beard, right?
I know, right? Funny how that works out. Moving to baseball now. Roger, this team's undefeated right now. They've got a midweek game with Texas State. Could be tricky. The Bobcats are a good ball club, 12-3. Steven Trout's doing a really nice job with them again this season. They sweep South Carolina upstate in their last non-conference series. Almost lost that middle game. The Spartans score 6 in the 9th inning to make that game really interesting. But really seems like they're getting offense from different guys, especially Josh Livingston. Yesterday, Roger, you were out there calling the game for the Texas Sports Network.
Well, and Jim Schlossnagle said before the game, I got to get this guy going. I mean, he had good numbers at Wichita State. He had good power numbers, and he hadn't done much at all. And then he goes and hits a grand slam and then a 3-run, what turned out to be a walk-off because it was their 6th run rule victory in 15 games. I think they've lost probably about a game's worth of innings from their 6 run rules. But yeah, they rely so much on the home run, and so far it's been a big part. Casey Borba broke up a 2-0 game, kind of a ho-hum game where they scored a couple of runs early, an unearned run after an error, a base hit and an error. But and then Borba, boom, 3-run homer. Livingston hits a slam and another 3-run homer. Are we surprised they're 15-0 if you just break it down to each game? No. Now, it's baseball. You know as well as anybody that, Saturday night could have gone sideways instead of just getting the go-ahead run to the plate. And the fact that we're talking about that particular moment as one, well, maybe they lose. Well, a lot of teams lose them, right? Sac State went in and took 2 out of 3 at LSU. But first true road game is Tuesday with Texas State. They live for that game. Not only because it's Texas, but because as a Sun Belt school, that's a huge RPI game for them. And then they get Ole Miss here, and then all bets are off once conference play starts.
Yep, and that's when it's going to start. It's Friday with Ole Miss. They come to town, and any series in the SEC is a tough one. Just like any other, kind of seems like we say that all the time about all the other sports, baseball especially. The SEC is a tough baseball conference, and they're going to have to put their big boy shorts on every time out.
Well, and remember last year, they got off to that great start, and then they kind of had to hang on to win the regular season title. Now, they had some big injuries, but they went to Starkville and got things going with a sweep there. And so, that's a big weekend before they go to Auburn in week 2 of the SEC.
Yeah, so we'll see if they can go to 16-0 to start the season, if they can get by the Texas State Bobcats on Tuesday, and they will host Ole Miss to begin SEC play on Friday for a 3-game weekend set. And real quick, before we go, the softball team, they've won 20 consecutive games. They've won 20 consecutive games. They swept South Carolina in their SEC opener on the road. Katie Stewart is still, some of the home runs she's hit are still in the air, I think. Getting great pitching from Tegan Cavan. Hannah Wells, their freshman, is kind of maybe sort of emerging as a number 2 potentially, with like Sitlali Gutierrez. But this softball team, Roger, they look pretty good.
They did, and we're not surprised. They lost that early game to Nebraska down in San Antonio, but Nebraska also has a win over Texas Tech. So, taking care of business. They get a midweek game, and then they get Ole Miss. By the way, it's going to be an all Texas Ole Miss weekend over there on the other side of 35. Ole Miss got swept in their SEC opening weekend to Alabama. But, again, not real surprised that they're 3-0, even though they were road wins. They're just so talented. They can do it in so many ways. And, Katie Stewart, just, watch out if you've got one of those apartments that faces McCombs over there beyond left field. Yeah,
if you're a grad student living in those buildings on East 21st.
Was that a knock? No, it was a softball.
Yeah, nope. That was a softball taking its chunk out of the side of the building.
Right.
And Mike White kind of joked that he's glad he's not getting a bill for all the damage that not only Katie, but everybody else who hits homers out there, which is essentially the entire team.
It's kind of a cool element.
It is. I like it.
Camden Yards or Choctaw Stadium in Oklahoma City where they played the Big 12 tournament, and they had a structure beyond left field that those guys could P-rod.
It does have warehouse qualities at Camden Yards.
It's fun.
That's for true. One thing before we go that I omitted, so sorry, Dalen Swain. He's named the newcomer of the year in the SEC in men's basketball, and he's also a second-team All-SEC selection. So I wanted to get that in there. Congrats to Dalen. Just a tremendous player. Came over to the team with Sean Miller from Xavier when he was hired. He's had a great year.
And can Sean Miller hold on to Dalen Swain and build around him for next year in Modest Vocatitis?
Right.
And again, it's a question you have to literally ask with every player every year. But if they can keep those two, the rest are, it's gravy. What else you might be able to keep, and who knows how many he wants to have around. That's kind of where we are. But Swain, a great piece if he can stick around with Vocatitis for next year.
Good times in Longhorns athletics. This is always fun. It's kind of just the big sort of like amalgamation of every sport that's going on. It's a crazy time right now. This sort of springtime where basketball and baseball, softball, and spring football is all happening. So good time, busy time. Stay updated with us on air, online, KXAN.com. Roger, Noah, Levon, they'll have you all covered on the air, and we'll get you all the info we can on KXAN.com. So we will leave this episode of the Horns Report right here. So thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. And until then, we'll talk to you again soon.